This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health. Dr. Joel Wallach. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health. Dr. Joel Wallach. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes. I am your host. I'm a certified holistic health coach, certified naturopathic practitioner, and director of student services at the Institute of Holistic Health. And folks, today's show is going to be fascinating because we're tackling a subject that impacts pretty much every one of us. So folks, if you were invited by somebody specific, you want to make sure that you get back with them, as we are a resource for an amazing community. We want to make sure that those who are referring the program actually get a thank you. And not just a thank you. If somebody referred you, they are your person. They are the person for you to get back to. If you have any questions in regards to solutions that we talk about here on Daily with Doc and Becca. All right. So what is it that impacts pretty much every one of us, folks? It's the vitamin drain that's zapping thiamine, niacin, our energy, and cognition. Did you know that there's a connection between vitamins and how we comprehend things even? Yes. Well, we've all felt it. The mental fog, low energy, or just not feeling sharp. Could nutrient depletion be the culprit? And more importantly, why are these essential B vitamins being drained from our bodies faster than we can replenish them? Well, to help us unpack this, I am honored to welcome our special guest, Dr. Judy Reynolds. She is highly respected in the animal science as an animal scientist and a nutritionist whose work has bridged the gap between research and real-world application. With decades of expertise in bone and mineral metabolism, genetic disorders, and nutrient requirements, she brings a unique perspective on how vitamins and minerals affect performance, resilience, and long-term health. She has served as a technical product manager, researcher, equine nutritionist, and consultant, and she's even helped review the official nutrient requirements of horses, the global standard in nutrition science. But her insights, folks, reach far beyond animals, and her work shines a light on the critical ways nutrients, especially thiamine, which is B1, niacin, B3, affect human health, energy, and cognitive function. So, folks, we are excited to have Dr. Judy here with us. I'm not going to give away all that she's going to be talking about. So, folks, help me welcome to the screen Dr. Judy Reynolds. Hello, Dr. Judy. Welcome to Daily with Doc. We're always excited to have you on. As for many of us, we like to go deep into that technical stuff, and that's what you're best at. So, how are you today?
Thank you, Becca. I am great. I'm so happy to be back. It's been a little while, and life happens. So I guess that's a good summary for that. People may be wondering why a horse person, and I guess the best thing to say about that is that I believe we learn more when we have things to compare. So one of the real problems we have in the whole world with everything is that there are people who get put into a category and they study one subject and they become an expert at that. But then since they don't learn other things, they don't realize how much is out there and they don't have these basic comparisons. And just one quick example is that a person who has studied horses and loved horses since I was a little child already knew about what we call the microbiome, because a huge part of horse nutrition is that they have this great big cecum. Instead of our little bitty appendix, they have a great big cecum. And in that cecum, all kinds of bacteria live, and they do the bulk of the work of digesting those bacteria, or those bacteria work digesting the fibers in grass. As we know, your cattle, your horses, they eat grass and we can't. We can't digest grass. So by already understanding that, by being an animal scientist and understanding those kinds of things, we as a group were kind of way ahead of the human scientists that are starting to figure out what's going on with the microbiome. And that's going to tie a little bit into what I'm talking about today too, because if you think about what's going on in the world right now, one of the biggest factors we're dealing with is mental health. It's coming up everywhere, in all places, all kinds of things. And there's something really important about mental health that most people just don't think about. And that is how nutrition affects it. And there happens to be a very long history of studying nutrition and mental health. It's just not out there. People aren't finding it. So that's one of the big things I'm going to talk about. And just as an aside, I spent 4 days last week online at a conference on mental health. And 4 days, long days, I still have to go through a lot of the material because they would have 2 sessions at the same time. So I could only watch one and that kind of thing. So I will be having a lot of really cool insights coming forward just from that conference. And this is what I did before when I was a horse specialist, is I would go to these conferences and learn whatever's new. And then I would come back and try to make it simple, take the most important parts out. And there are some gems that we're going to be talking about at some point. So with that said, I'm going to go back and start talking about nutrients, and I'm going to talk about water soluble vitamins. And Becca, I'm sure you can make the links available to the other talks that I've done. I think I've done about 10 or 11 maybe of these talks with slides. And, we kind of left off in the vitamins. We had already talked a couple of times about water soluble vitamins. And then we're going to go on from here with all the other nutrients. So I really have 2 goals with these. Number one, to get kind of the basics down of the science of nutrition. And that takes a long time. We're going to go through, all the different types, water, vitamins, minerals, protein, all these things, but then, go down that. And then there's all other things that have to do with nutrition that we'll also talk about. So that I'm laying that background, but at the same time, I always want to bring in new things. And this is why I actually started several months ago on the topic of the B vitamins as it relates to mental health and as it relates to the drugging that is generally done for people that are believed to have mental health issues. What they do, what they have done historically, is drugs that they're called SSRIs. And what they do is they're supposed to allow serotonin, which is supposed to be the feel-good hormone, let it stay in your brain longer so you'll feel better, so you won't feel depressed or have these problems. But it has been announced even to the general public recently that even though there's a long history of using those, they don't work.
Right.
So
So
now go ahead.
I'm sorry, just for our audience, when you say mental health, can you just do a quick little rundown and folks listen as she's doing a rundown of what these mental health conditions can be that are affected by nutritional deficiencies? And if you can think of somebody that may be plagued with one of these conditions, make sure you share this program with them.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Judy, I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to you.
Okay. Okay, great. Great way to start. As far as definitions, I always love throwing definitions in there so that people are all on the same track. When we talk about mental health things, you've probably heard of things like depression. You've heard of even ADHD. Those kinds of things are quite common. And schizophrenia, one of the most severe, those kinds of things are in the class of mental health. And just generally, you have probably heard of people who, especially with depression, they just feel so bad. Sometimes what we worry about is suicide, because these types of things can actually lead, people feel so bad. They don't have a normal, what we call normal sense of just feeling good. And there's, multiple reasons for that. But one of the big ones is lack of nutrients. And just to kind of jump ahead a little bit, it's actually been said in these books that I've got books going back in before the 1900s and things, and they had already decided that your food, no matter how good your food is, in this day and age, you cannot get enough of specifically niacin, which is the one I'm going to talk the most about today. So what that means is that supplements are required. And that's a big leap for a lot of people to even say, oh my gosh, do I have to take supplements? Well, I think as a group here at Critical Health News and Daily with Doc, we have already understood that there are a lot of nutrients that we need. And it's like people use a car analogy a lot, where your car needs all of its parts in order to run. If there's something missing on the car, you might not be able to run at all if you have no engine. If you have something wrong with a tire, you could start the engine but not drive, that kind of concept. But so we basically know that our bodies are going to require nutrients. But it just seems like in the general public, at least for the last, since the early 1900s, we've kind of diverged from, there are many kinds of ways to talk about health. And we've gone strictly to mostly the allopathic doctors, the medical doctors. And they are not trained in nutrition. Their specialty is acute things like broken bones, having to have surgeries and things like that. But they don't really have a background in nutrition, which is the basis of chronic problems, chronic disease. Because for all practical purposes, chronic disease is a lack of nutrients. And again, that's, people have known that, but it's not generally out there for people to find out about it. So the mental disorders are when someone acts in a way that generally is not accepted as normal behavior. And again, there are definitions for each one, but it's a perception. It is how they perceive reality, and it doesn't allow them to interact with other people, with the public. And the worst part of it is when they become violent, which they can. Unfortunately, for a person who has those issues, it's really the only type of disorder where they being the society, can actually take away all of your rights, lock you up into some kind of an institution, and then give you treatments and things without your permission. And the reason for that is that you can imagine, if there are people with these problems, if they're in society, they cause harm to other people. And so throughout time, that's been what's been happening, is that people can actually be locked up. But the reason they were doing treatments that we now know don't work is because they just really didn't have an idea of what the options were. And if we go back throughout science, we always find things where at the time we didn't know what to do. And one of the things I talk about a lot is that the first president of the United States died because they did something very common back then called bloodletting. So they believed if you were sick and you just put a hole in your arm, let a bunch of your blood drain out, that would be good. Looking back on that right now, it's ridiculous. It didn't work, but they didn't know. So we don't know what we don't know. Okay, so basically, the main goal that I have is to try to take information and make it available to people so that they know that they have more options than just one through a medical type model, but also to look at nutrition first. Okay, I have some slides. Let's see if I can get them to work. It's always fun. Ooh, there they are. Okay.
Beautiful.
We are good. I have not done this for a while, and it's amazing. Here we go with curtains again. Curtains, the bane of our existence. Okay, so on the other talks that I've done, which Becca will help you find them, if you just go back in the archive, but we've already talked about some of these, but the concepts are so important. I'm going to go through a few of them, and then I will get to the bulk of this, which is niacin. And if I'm hurrying, slow me down, Becca, but I want to allow some questions. So it's always, one of those trade-offs. Okay. Gotta get the slide to go forward. All right, there's the pointer. There we go. Okay. So I want everybody to keep in mind, I'm going to talk about a specific B vitamin and then a little bit more about other B vitamins and things, but we can't start with one nutrient. And that's what a lot of people are doing is what we know doesn't work is you start with a symptom and then you give them a drug. Symptom, drug, we know that doesn't work. And a lot of people now are trying the symptom, one nutrient. And again, neither one of those works. That's sometimes called fractionated nutrition. It's got other kinds of things that they call it. But the point is, you have to have all the things your body needs to start out with. And that's why we always recommend the first thing we do is multivitamin supplementation and vitamin, mineral, all the nutrients that we need. Okay. So we have to start there. And again, I got to wing through these so that we can get on to some new stuff. But when I talk about water soluble vitamins, people always say, what does that mean? Why am I saying water soluble instead of, something else? Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that within our body tissues, we have two basic kinds of tissues. We have those that contain mostly water. Examples would be your blood, your lymph fluid, all the fluid inside your cells. Those are basically water soluble. And then it's sitting in that water. All the ions and organelles and everything are in there. Then the other type of tissue is mostly fat. And we have a membrane that goes around each cell in our body. We have water on the inside, then a fatty membrane, and water on the outside. And most of you are aware, if you have a glass of water and you pour some oil on top, that oil will go to the top because really the water molecules are not as heavy, but the charges in the water push them out of the way. And so that system of having two types of tissues in the body allows us to separate things. Okay, if we didn't have a system to do that, we couldn't have different cells and different organs. Everything would all be a big blob, and we'd be a single cellular organism. And let's not get mad at them, because bacteria and things are very important. But that's how it's classified. So when we talk about the water-soluble vitamins, they're all the B complex vitamins and vitamin C. There are some forms of vitamin K also but that's not, what we're looking at right now. Okay, so again, we need to look at what is in the two different areas of the body. Oh, where else is the fat in the body? The brain, the nerves, the central nervous system, and all the nerves. So kind of important that we can separate things out by having membranes made of fat. Extremely important that our brains function correctly. And guess what? That ties into mental disorders, doesn't it? It's all gonna tie in. Okay. And why are these things even necessary? Why do we need these supplements? Well, digestion, utilization of foods, almost all metabolic processes. It's hard to even imagine that we have probably, people guess differently all the time, 10 trillion cells in our body, and we have at least 10 times that many cells that are bacterial as part of our complex of our person as we sit here. So if you think about that, it's mind-blowing. All those things are happening all the time. Okay? And we need the correct proportions. And we as people eat basically what we want. And we eat for enjoyment, taste, and things like that, more than strictly to meet our needs. Opposite of that, as an animal nutritionist, we have learned to put the supplements together for the animals so that they don't have a choice. They have to eat what we give them. When we look at the differences between wild animals that don't get supplemental food from people or feed, we find a big difference in when we feed them and we give them all these supplements, they grow larger, they live longer, they reproduce better, and all these different things happen because we've managed what we're doing with our animals, okay? So, again, just key concept, and this is a huge one, and without understanding this, we start to run into all kinds of problems because it's kind of natural to think of something as either good or bad. So for instance, if you have a nutrient and that nutrient you have heard is a poison, it's a toxin, and we're going to think it's really bad. And one of those good examples of that is a trace mineral called selenium. But what I'm showing you here, and let's orient, along the bottom axis here, we have the amount of the nutrient that you're eating. Okay, and I don't have it blocked off because it's different for each nutrient. So on this graph, I'm going to take any single nutrient. Okay, I'm going to feed not enough. And here's how the animal performs: death, optimal performance, and death. Okay, so as we go higher on the amount of nutrient, not enough, they die. Deficiency, they have symptoms, they're sick. And by the way, this is right here where we see NRC. This is basically the minimal. So when we look at charts that say how much you should have, whether it's for people or animals, and there are extensive charts, with the research and everything on how much you should have, all that is to keep you basically alive. You have to have more than that just to be marginal, and then to be optimal, you may need a lot more, okay? Then again, if we overdo it, we're going to have problems because we have to get rid of the excess, and it will imbalance it. There are famous balances like calcium and phosphorus and copper and zinc and things like that, where if we don't keep that ratio correct, we start upsetting all kinds of other things that are happening in the body. So this is a key concept. So if someone says, well, I don't want to take selenium because it's a poison. Not true. Too much selenium is a poison. Another big one is arsenic. And again, very, very, very small amounts of arsenic in animal studies have been proven to stop leukemia. Very difficult to work with, something that's happening a lot in people. But there's a misunderstanding that no arsenic is ideal. Well, arsenic is found in very minute quantities almost everywhere on the planet, or at least on the, shall we say, we're not talking about the core, but we're talking about the land that we live on. So things like that we have to keep in mind. So it's not, when we look at nutrients, now you start talking about radioactive nutrients, that's a different thing. Those are always poisonous. They use them sometimes in testing. They use a small amount to try to find out an answer to a problem, but they realize, you can't use too much of it or you're going to have big trouble. Scientific term, big trouble. Okay. And I can go back to that if anybody has questions about it later. Now here we're talking about B vitamins, and what this is, if any of you have studied biology, chemistry, or things like that, you'll recognize this as what we call intermediary metabolism. When I eat certain types of foods, up at the top here, I have glucose, which represents our carbohydrates. Here I have fatty acids, and here I have amino acids. These are the main things that are in the foods that we eat. The reason this graph is so important, and I actually created this graph myself from just reading about what the things do, and I've used it for quite a while now, but the point here is, if you want to get all these things broken down that you've eaten, and you want to get them into this, what we call the TCA cycle, and then over here we're going to get energy out, everything on this chart in yellow is a B vitamin. Okay? And the most important thing here, I'm going to talk mostly about niacin today. To get from glucose, you need niacin. To get from fatty acids, you need niacin. 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 You see how niacin is everywhere? I have 3 different sources I've just looked over recently again. And one of them says niacin has 400 chemical reactions in the body, one says 500, and one says 900. Remember, we're dealing with trillions of chemical reactions and things going on all the time. It's beyond our ability to really comprehend mathematically. So all this stuff is going on. But the point is, if you don't have these things, your body has to try to figure out another way. Or is it surprising that you have symptoms of depression, tiredness, all of these things that we're talking about, and even death when it's bad enough? Okay, so all of it fits together, that we have to eat food, break it down, and get energy out of it so that we can do all the rest of our work. So quickly, some sources, meat and milk, and that's because in those tissues, they already contain B vitamins, the tissues themselves. And it was one of the main things that helped people determine why we needed the B vitamins, was because societies went from meat and milk to a corn-based diet. And corn is notoriously deficient in B vitamins. And then just some other sources, stabilized rice bran I used as a horse formulator, and then brewer's yeast, another product we use for horses. Remember, you're going to see basically when they took the bran off the rice and created all these products that are white rice. People think white rice is cooler and cleaner and all that. They removed the bran and germ, which is brown. And so what they'll do then, if you buy white flour, they will put some B vitamins back in it. Unfortunately, they don't do the whole complex. They don't do enough, and it doesn't work as well. Another source is bacteria in the colon of us, the cecum and colon of horses. And this has a lot to do with how well are we absorbing all our nutrients, because that process won't work if we don't have healthy bacteria. So that goes back to our microbiome. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but we need more of these different things for certain times in life. Growth, reproduction, exercise, all these kinds of things. That's pretty typical of most nutrients, is that they're going to vary. Okay, the properties of these vitamins, and we usually want to talk about the B complex together. You want to make sure you're getting them all. All the organisms need them. Okay, they all contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and a little bit of nitrogen. Some also contain things like cobalt or sulfur. Being absorbed through the portal vein means they go straight from the liver. They go into the blood. And that's, that's important as far as how it's carried. Another huge thing, they're not toxic. At less than 10 times the RDA, remember I showed you the RDA, and we got to get more than that. But usually it's much more than that. Most B vitamins are not considered toxic at all. They've fed huge amounts without detrimental effects. Here's the other key thing, and we're talking about mental issues. We see mental illnesses and mental issues easily because the person's acting so different. They're minimally stored. In other words, if you have extra B vitamins and vitamin C, within 24 hours, basically will be excreted. And that means they're in the urine, because if they're excreted in the feces, that means you never even absorb them. So for the most part, they're excreted in the urine. That's why one day without them, you start being deficient. They're not stored like other things. Well, I can just take what I ate yesterday or the day before or whatever. So we have to have them in the diet every day. And those deficiency symptoms are happening really rapidly. Again, it's a day-to-day thing. And I have people that say, well, if you find a lot of vitamin C, for instance, in your urine, you've wasted that vitamin C. No, because what do you think protects your urinary system? Vitamin C protects that system. So as it's excreted, it's being used. So we don't want to be not taking something. And there was a big thing that doctors would always say, if you take vitamins, it's just expensive urine, right? Not true. The thing about precursors is usually they're going to come in the way they are. They're relatively small. They're going to come in the way they are. They're not going to be broken down from something else. So, in the case of niacin, tryptophan can be broken down into niacin. So you have to weigh that when you're looking at your total amount of niacin that you need. Tryptophan can also go and be used in other pathways. So that's something that you can consider. Okay, and this just shows how long we've had symptoms. This is thiamine, B1. Vitamin C causes scurvy. I mean, we're talking 2697 BC. I should have put 80 here, but it's kind of obvious, I guess. So niacin, 1920, documented deficiency. But these things have been happening for a long time, and in the past, they just didn't know what to do about it. They thought almost everything was either spontaneous. Before they knew about the germ theory, they thought everything just happened and there was nothing you could do about it. Then we had the germ theory, and then they tried to make everything a germ. So these were all considered diseases, and basically, no, they were nutrient deficiencies instead of diseases. Okay, functions. I've got this slide here, so if people go back and look at it, you can take time. I'm not going to go through them. I will just say niacin is also B3. It's called PP. It's called nicotinic acid originally, and it's used for carbohydrate metabolism. But what has happened a while ago is that there's another molecule called nicotine. And nicotine, they're very similar molecules, but nicotine we know is found in tobacco. And so nicotine when people were talking about niacin, people would misunderstand when you said nicotinic acid, and they thought they were talking about nicotine. So the nomenclature has changed, and I've got old books where it was the old way and new books where it's the new way. So now it's niacinic acid. So those are different words. And there are actually 5 different types of it, which I'll go through later on. Okay, but it's mainly for carbohydrate metabolism, although you saw it's needed for all the metabolism of fats and proteins also. Okay, this is just for the horse people. If you want to look at this, I'll pass through it. But it's the proof that you are getting, look, you have more here than you had in the hay to start with, right? So that's the proof that the bacteria are actually creating them. Otherwise, you wouldn't have more than you started with in your feed source. Okay, and this is just the serotonin theory of depression debunked, like I talked about at the beginning. They don't work, and therefore now everybody's kind of in a frenzy. Well, if they really don't work, what should we do? That's what people are trying to figure out, and we're trying to tell them, hey, let's look at the nutrition science that's been there literally for centuries. Okay, so we are to niacin, again, vitamin B3, and you can see it's a small molecule. It's got 6 carbons, 5 hydrogens, 1 nitrogen, and 2 oxygens, and our glucose, basic sugar, is C6H12O6. So this is actually smaller than glucose, and that, therefore, you can see how it can be all over the body, how it gets everywhere, easy to absorb and things, unless you have other issues that you know, you can't absorb things correctly. And this reference said 500 reactions a body. Like I said, others say more and sometimes even less. There's actually a book, and I will hold it up here. You may not be able to see it very well, but I'll put it in front of me and see if it works. It's called Niacin. It's a big, thick book. Okay. And it was written in 2023, 2 years ago. And what this person did, Andrew Saul, he is a nutritionist, but he worked with 2 of the main people who worked on behavior and vitamins. And so this thing is like unbelievably important. As it happens, the 2 people he worked with that were born much earlier have passed away, and he himself, unfortunately, was lost in 2024. So if he hadn't put that book together, we would have a hard time being able to have this really valuable information. I've followed him. He's taught courses and things. I've followed him and done some videos that have been really good at showing mental health and vitamins. If anybody's interested, just get with me about any of that stuff. Okay, but again, one of the things they say, we're not even close, 18 milligrams a day. You cannot meet the requirement with food alone. The math is just not even close. So that's what we're actually dealing with. My pointer likes to play games. It's got a mind of its own. Okay, so what happens if you don't have enough niacin? It's called pellagra, or the 4D disease, dermatitis. So a lot of these skin problems that people have all the time. You're trying to figure out what to put on your skin. Listen to pharmacist Ben Fuchs about this, because he is a specialist. He's a pharmacist, but a specialist in nutrition and a specialist in skincare. And, this is why we're going back to the gut and trying to fix pretty much everything. But dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, mental problems, and death. So again, it fits in. These people also can have retardation, muscular weakness, anorexia, and this is huge, because if you don't think you should eat, if you think mentally that you are already overweight and you won't eat, again, you can die from not eating because you think you are too fat, which is a mental problem. In the animals, they have what's called beef tongue. Their tongue gets really swollen, sore, and red. And there's also an effect with skin pigmentation. So it's involved in the melatonin that colors our skin. And this is just, I'm going to follow what happens with the top deficiency here, and then put the next deficiency and the next and the next and the next. So this is starting with pellagra, or a vitamin B3 deficiency, or niacin deficiency. When you have that deficiency, it causes B2 and B6 and tryptophan to be deficient. That causes impaired absorption of vitamin C. So even if you're getting enough, you're not absorbing it as well as you should. Not absorbing enough vitamin C impairs your absorption of iron, which causes excess absorption of copper. So that's another one of those you need to have in balance, iron and copper. Then that inhibits nickel metabolism, which further inhibits iron absorption. You can see how all this goes. It's not one thing. They all tie in together. So it becomes fascinating. Okay, and just quick, this is thiamine, and that causes beriberi, but this is another B vitamin. Look at the things that can be a cause of. Again, dementia. So most of the B vitamins are tied in somehow with mental issues, dementia, but congestive heart failure is a big thing, a big deal. Multiple sclerosis, anxiety, hysteria, confusion, depression, muscular weakness and wasting, anorexia, nausea, fibromyalgia, peripheral neuropathies, paralysis. Anybody know anybody with any of these? B vitamins. Okay.
Dr. Judy, I just want to bring something up. In your last slide, you were talking about how nutrients become deficient when other things are not there. That's the cofactors that Dr. Wallach has talked about for decades, which when people look at the labels on the longevity products, wanting to know, how come you don't just have a product that's this?
Right.
Well, it's those cofactors. Can you talk a little bit into the cofactors and the importance of that real quick?
Right. And even before that, it's why we always start with the whole program. We start with the healthy body pack. We got to get everything in there. Okay. But when cofactors, I'll see if I can quickly get back to the one where I was talking about. Oh, maybe not. When I was talking about what is in vitamins, here we go. They all have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, but some have like cobalt or sulfur or things. And what that means is that in order to form the molecule of the vitamin itself, it has to have cobalt or sulfur in it. And sulfur, like MSM, the S stands for sulfur. Cobalt, vitamin B12 is cyanocobalamin. It has to have cobalt in it. So that's what Dr. Wallach is talking about when he's formulating is we know, first of all, you get your healthy body pack and you get all your nutrients, get the basic ones in. Then if you're still having issues, then we would add something. And usually, for instance, if it's B vitamins, we're going to have a whole bunch of things with that. We're going to make sure those things are there. We're going to make sure we have, when we're working with iron, we're going to make sure that we have the copper. Zinc and copper is another one. So that's what it is. It's like, that's where those particular molecules, they may be atoms, but that's why they have to fit together in a certain way. And that's why that's basically the thing. But again, we still have to always go back and start with all of them. Right? Okay, I'll wing back here. Okay. That is my last slide. So we have a few minutes here. This is a concept that as health coaches, as people are working with other people or working with nutrition and things, this is the way I like to look at it. And I may be the first and the only, but if you think about it, nutrition is a science where we study and learn how nutrients affect everything, the body, everything about the science of nutrition. And what is disease? It is a name for something that's not working in the body. And so this is kind of the way I like to look at it. Okay. Questions?
Fantastic. I know AJ has a question. AJ, are you available? has to unmute.
Hey, AJ, he was just there.
Yeah, he was just here. Let's go over to Hattie. Hattie, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Woo, woo, this is absolutely powerful. And
Thank you, Hattie.
I mean, seriously, because I agree with you. All disease is nutritional deficiencies. And if we can get our people to understand that one thing, then we're going to be ahead of the game. Because then they're going to stop going to doctors. But in any event, I would like to know, I get a lot of calls around iron. Sister called me yesterday. She said, I think I'm iron deficient. And so, and I know it's a key part of lack of absorption, but nonetheless, how would you help somebody deal with this iron thing? If they are copper, if you need some extra copper, what would you recommend? But I really have a very important question that I think you can answer. And that's somewhat totally different, but it's nutritional. There's a dis-ease that has to do with the fascia in your hands, where the tissues are, the hand is being, the ring finger, the little finger is being driven down where the person cannot open up their fingers. And they have all these nodules, really hard nodules throughout the palm of the hand. There's a name for it, which I can't pronounce, but I can spell it if you needed me to. But
Why don't you go ahead and spell it for whoever's listening?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I apologize. It is called oh no. Don't go away. Okay, it is called okay. I apologize. You're dealing with anyway.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and look for it. I'll start on iron.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, iron is very interesting, and it's pretty much unique when it comes to the minerals. And there are big issues about it because of that. Iron, the control mechanism to make sure we don't get too much iron is in the digestive tract, and it has to do with absorption. So if the body doesn't have enough iron, we absorb more. If the body has enough, we start absorbing less. So because of that, it's very difficult to overdose on iron. Okay. However, if we inject iron, sometimes people will decide someone's anemic and they will inject iron. The problem there is that our body recycles iron extremely well. And it's never recommended. I should never say never, because, there may be a situation with extreme blood loss. Someone's bleeding to death, they can only give them plasma or something like that, where they can't give them hemoglobin, they can't give them blood cells, or whatever. But for the most part, we don't want to inject it because the body conserves it so much. And in cases where people have overdosed on iron for that reason, they've thought they could, sometimes people in sports or things will think, well, I can carry more oxygen, I'll be able to run faster or something, and I'll get an iron injection. Really bad. And what happens there is that you have to successively get rid of your own blood to get rid of that over consumption of iron, too much iron. Okay. And you mentioned copper. Copper is a cofactor. It's required for iron to do its work in the body. So it's been a misunderstanding that if you're iron deficient, give iron where you may need copper, or you may need any of the other 90 to 100 or whatever other essential nutrients, balances, all these kinds of things that happen. And by the way, just to throw it in there are also anti-nutritional factors in foods. That's a fascinating science right there, where you are taking in what you need, but something else is in there that stops it from working correctly, and you become deficient. And that's famous in the plant kingdom, because plants are sitting out there totally defenseless. Animals come along, they don't want to be eaten, and they've got all these kinds of toxins to animals. So, all of that ties in. But the huge thing about iron, you don't want to inject it. And if you do have too much, they have to you have to go in and get your blood drawn periodically and just keep doing that until you can get rid of some of it. Or, I mean, you can die from too much iron. So it's really misunderstood in that aspect. Okay, on the fascia?
Yeah, it's called Dupuytren's contractions.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and spell it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's DUPUYTRENS contractions. Contracture.
Right. Okay. As you know, the fascia is a connective tissue. So therefore, we're looking at building the connective tissue. For connective tissue, we need collagen, we need vitamin C, on top of all of our other nutrients that we would need. And so sometimes what they'll do is they'll go in and surgically change those things. They'll cut something or do something. That isn't fixing the problem. And thankfully, our body regenerates all the connective tissues in a certain time frame. So as we add the things that we need, add all our essential nutrients, and make sure we're getting a lot of collagen and vitamin C, two main things, there can be, success in reversing that. I have to look it up. Dr. Wallach, I've seen it in Dr. Wallach's books. So, I mean, I know there's a history of being able to fix that and similar types of disorders. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Hattie. Let's go over to AJ. AJ?
Hey, Dr. Judy. My only can you hear me?
Yes.
My only question was, and I'm going to be brief because I'm helping some folks. My only question was, you talked about the bacteria in the gut. More bacteria, more of the B vitamins in the gut and excrement than were ingested. And you then showed the composition of the niacin. You showed the composition of the niacin and glucose. Are the bacteria converting glucose into niacin?
No. Okay. What was the first part of it?
Something is
okay, I got it. I forgot. I got it. Okay. I showed you in horse nutrition, because they eat grass, right? They eat grass. Grass is a complex carbohydrate. It's literally a string of glucose molecules, but instead of being bonded together with what we call an alpha bond, which our enzymes can break. So we can break down simple sugars with alpha bonds. Grass is a carbohydrate bonded with what we call beta bonds. And the bacteria can break those down. So the horse is able to break those bonds down. Or I mean, the bacteria within the horse do it for them. Okay. So when the grass comes in, it's a big long chain of carbohydrates of glucose, 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 glucose. And different fibers may have some fructose or may have different fibers. Okay, different sugars in the fibers. So those bacteria are able to separate the big long chains of carbohydrate and into the sugar molecules, and then those sugar molecules will go into metabolism, right? So niacin, the bacteria also create niacin as part of their metabolic process. So it's something that they are using in their body and getting rid of.
Okay. Yeah. The reason I asked the question was because you showed that you showed the composition, and one of the molecules was 12, another molecule was 6.
Right.
And in the niacin, it was a reduced amount. It was 6 and 2. So I was thinking, well, maybe the bacteria is stripping, or something in the metabolism is stripping the molecules and then maybe converting it
Yeah,
in.
that's an interesting way to look at it. But that's not really the way the metabolism works. It's just that, I mean, that actual molecule of niacin is formulated, or I mean, is created a different way. Okay, it doesn't start with sugar molecules, but it's a fascinating way to look at it. Yes, because any molecule that's bigger or smaller, basically what happens is we take things away or we add things together when we're making molecules.
Understood. You're the bomb. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I have a
All right.
couple of sets of those little molecules that you can put together, the chemistry sets. If you're a
Oh.
teacher, if you're a
If we-
teacher,
and we could
Yeah.
sit down Indian style and play with those molecules.
yeah. Well, my grandson likes to do it. The problem with those sets for teachers is that they're really expensive and you only get a few of them, but you know, they have the right number of bonds. So you can sit there and you can, to learn chemistry, you can say, okay, take a carbon. The fascinating thing and the most important thing about carbon is it has 4 bonds. So every carbon atom can connect to 4 different things. Now, if you had nothing but hydrogens, they only have 1. They can only hook to one other thing. You'd be, you know, 2 hydrogens, that's it. You're done. You can't make a bigger molecule. So that's why it's so important with all the different atoms. You know, on our chemistry chart, we have all the different atoms and they all have different ways to connect to other things. So the study of chemistry it's all how those molecules can be put together and how they can do different things in the body. But that's why we are a carbon-based. Life on Earth is carbon-based. So if you want to get rid of carbon, you're getting rid of life. And carbon dioxide is essential. It's 0.04% of our atmosphere, carbon dioxide. It is so low right now that if it gets much lower, we won't have enough plants to survive. So anyone talking about burying carbon or getting rid of carbon or those types of things are not understanding chemistry and reality. Okay,
Let me just repeat what you just said.
Okay.
You get rid of carbon,
Okay.
you get rid of life.
Exactly. Carbon is the base atom. It's the difference between something that is alive and something that is not. A rock does not have carbon. Okay, unless it's, well, I shouldn't even say that because carbon can be broken down to coal, carbon can be broken down to diamonds, and then it could be sitting in a rock. But the point being, carbon is the basis for life on Earth. Any Star Trek fans out there? Anybody? Star Trek? Okay. Mr. Spock had green blood. And some of the other animals and people and stuff had, they said that which one was it? The one that was underground doing all the tunnels and everything. They said that it had a silicon base. And we think of AI and computers and all those kinds of things being based on silicon, not carbon. So non-living. But the point is, plants have to take in carbon dioxide, and thankfully, they excrete oxygen. Animals need the oxygen, and they excrete the carbon dioxide so the plants can make some more oxygen. That's the cycle of life on our planet. Also, though, whenever the plants are making oxygen, they have to be getting sunlight in. So at night, a plant is the same as you and me. It is respirating, it is using up oxygen and creating carbon dioxide. So the plants do both. When they have sunlight, they make oxygen. When they don't, they make carbon dioxide. But again, without all these plants, there would be no life. Without the sun, there would be no life on Earth. But the whole concept of trying to get rid of carbon is either a misunderstanding or a way to make political differences or changes or money, for money to shift, for power to shift by talking about things like getting rid of carbon. And,
Wow.
you know, I can talk more about
Okay.
that anytime if people want to.
We could do that
But we're
on
done.
another on another episode.
Yeah.
Let's go over to Keely, and then we have a question out on YouTube coming in. Keely, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Judy. Glad to have you back. We missed
Thank
you.
you.
I have two separate questions, and they're in two separate directions. But the first one is, I've had a couple clients lately where, like 3 men, and they're being diagnosed with issues that have to do with thyroid. Have you seen or heard of a lot of this? And they put them on levothyroxine like they do women. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think the best person who's described that for us is pharmacist Ben. And, you know, you can't start there. You have to get everything else in line first. So I would look at pharmacist Ben's work on that and go through it. But again, it's fix the digestive system and all that first. But if you look at what's happened to fertility and things, it's unbelievable how the changes have happened. But remember also, your hormones for men, women, everybody are all based on cholesterol. And we know that cholesterol has been demonized. So one of the best things to do for men is look, are they taking a statin? I mean, statins made the most money in history up until fairly recently, as far as
Right.
drugs prescribed. And yet they take away cholesterol, which is, I mean, it's the major component of your brain and your nervous system and all your hormones. So you can always look at that. I would at least think of that as far as looking at men's health. But then go back, you know, find out what they're taking, what issues there could be, what other interventions or things might have happened. And then we've got to go back to the basic nutrition, which should then take care of the thyroid issue without having to do supplemental thyroid things.
Yeah, it just seems like all of a sudden there's like 3 or 4 men, and I'm like, what is going on? But I haven't gotten into the depths of all of it. I know that 2 of them aren't on anything whatsoever. I mean, no statins, no blood pressure medication, anything. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get the history. And they're like, you know,
Right.
I don't know why I'm on it. I don't know why I'm on it. I'm like,
Right.
okay.
That's excellent. But then go back to diet.
Yeah. Okay. My
Because,
second
you know, they've been
question.
told don't eat eggs and all of that. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
okay.
true. My second question sort of has to do with, you know, a comparative thing in between horses and individuals. So I'm gonna give you one.
Okay.
I have a granddaughter, 12 years old, okay, or whatever. She's running a 5-minute and 24-second mile with a heart rate of 46 beats a minute. So when you look at horses and they happen to be different ages, you know, do you give them different levels of nutrition based on when they're running and how far they're running, given the fact that we have children who are pre-moon cycle that still need to grow and develop? They're on the full Monty. They're on the brain and heart pack, believe it or not, because of the taxing of the heart, running a 2.1 miles, and they're doing that in 11 minutes and 20 seconds. So I'm just wondering, is when you're doing with the horses compared to human beings, do you change that based on age? Do you change that based on
Yes.
female versus male?
Yes. All of it.
All of it.
If you want to send me, you can send me through Becca or however you want to do it. Just send me that you want my growing athlete. I did a technical bulletin about the growing athlete that's fairly in depth. I mean, it's not new anymore because it was in the early 2000s, and I have a number of presentations, but yes, within horses, we separate everything out. And just for a comment on that, in my research, I ran racehorses on a track you know, I didn't run them myself. I didn't ride them, but I did draw their blood and do all those things. And a horse will have a heart rate of 200, 220, somewhere in that range. And when they're running a quarter of a mile, And what happens a lot of times, if you think about it, if you think of the muscle bulk and the way a horse looks and how they run, they can only breathe in and out with the stride. Okay, so the whole digestive contents get thrown forward and get thrown back, and they can only breathe in and breathe out with their strides. So we measured strides, we measured all these kinds of things, and there's a huge body of work out there. But yes, I mean, the basic courses that we take in exercise physiology are human, because there's a lot more research on that. And then we also study other species so that we can see what those differences are. But the horse is the one that, first of all, they hold about a third of their blood vessels in the spleen when they're not working. So as soon as they're excited, not when they start running, but when they're excited and they're afraid, they call what they call dumping the spleen, and they get all those extra red blood cells in, which allows them to do different things with oxygen and stuff than people can do. But yeah, it's a very complex science, but I can get other information to you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.
And Dr. Judy, if you want to share your email, or I can share it with her privately, that's totally up to you.
Okay, I will share it. It is just Dr. Judy Reynolds. So it's DrJudyReynolds@gmail.com, and put in the heading from Daily with Doc, because I get a lot of emails and I have to have a way to, get through them and sort them. And
yes,
Yep.
I definitely understand that one. Well, Dr. Judy, thank you so much. We have gone over. We
Thank
appreciate your time. But I do have one question real quick. Olga out on YouTube, what about iron-rich water, which says scientifically shown to be highly absorbable source of iron? What do you think about that, Dr. Judy? Have you heard of water that's an iron-rich water?
I would have to see the label to see what they're talking about. I mean, a lot of well water can have extra iron and things, but again, the same thing applies. Your body will not ingest or will not absorb too much iron up to a certain extent, and it's quite a lot. So if you're drinking too much iron in your water, chances are you're not going to absorb more than you need. So to do that as a marketing thing, I'm a little suspicious of it. But again, people put vitamins in water to try to sell it when that's not the most efficient way to get your vitamins. So yeah, I would have to look at that actual thing and see what they're trying to accomplish and what they're doing.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Rod, I see your hand up. Did you have a question as well?
Yes, I saw a question in the comments asking if too much iron causes constipation.
Oh, that's a good question. Again, you're not going to absorb it if it's too much. So I think it's more likely that I would look at some other things for constipation, many other possible causes. I wouldn't single it out. It may be, but if you start with constipation, I would look at a lot of other things rather than going to iron. First of all, because you're not likely to absorb too much. Now, if you've had iron shots, yeah. Okay, makes sense?
All right. Thank you so much, folks. Let's give it up for
Thank
Dr.
you, everybody.
Judy Reynolds. Thank you so much, Dr. Judy. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're running on a short staff today, so these two gentlemen have been working overtime. Thank you so much, Rod, for taking over and letting people in, and also watching platforms and bringing in questions. And AJ, getting everything set up as the single tech crew do today, setting everything up, making sure everything is going the way it's supposed to. And I'm doing a part, putting it all together so he has something to send out to the world. So folks, we would just want to say thank you for taking this time investing it in yourself. I truly hope that you realize the importance of making sure that you don't only get individual vitamins, but the vitamins those vitamins need in order to be utilized, metabolized, assimilated, whatever word you want to use, into the cells of the body. Dr. Judy, great job. You know, you had mentioned an article that you had done in regards to young athletes. That'd be one to bring out and revisit. So that would be a fantastic future episode with you. And folks, if you go to any of your search engines, type in Daily with Doc and then Dr. Judy Reynolds, you're going to come up with all of the episodes that we have had with Dr. Judy. As you can see, she goes a little more into the technical, the scientific side of it, which many people need. They want something that's scientific. Well, folks, guess what? Nutrition is scientific. And they just don't have all the right information. And that's what our program is put together to do, is to provide information that can be utilized because of solutions we have found that really work. So folks, if you're experiencing mental health issues, get back with the person that shared this program with you and say, hey, what can I get started on? And if they don't know exactly, say, I want to get started on this thing called a brain and heart pack. Can you help me get started? That's a great place to start. Brain and heart pack and a bottle of de-stress. But if you got digestive issues and you know you have digestive issues, make sure that you're adding in there the ultimate enzymes and also the I-26, either powder, chewable, or in capsules. There, see, AJ has his, I have mine, but they're too far to reach right now. But starting with the digestion, getting the body flooded with nutrition so the body can do what it's designed to do. And there you go, tangy tangerine. Z Radical, fantastic. So AJ's got one version of tangy. Dr. Judy has another tangy. There's no more FucoidZ. You know, we are products of the product, folks, and we're able to thrive because of it. So again, get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there is no one to thank, please give our call team a call at 855-949-3377. And one of our certified holistic health coaches will be able to help you make sure that you are getting the right program for you. Dr. Judy, once again, she is also a certified holistic health coach. She has been through the program at the Institute of Holistic Health as well, and has learned Dr. Wallach's philosophy. She had been following it, and now she just goes deeper into it. And we love the fact that she's sharing her wisdom and knowledge with us, which just solidifies what Dr. Wallach has done for so many decades. So thank you, everybody. Did I say 855-949-3377? And if you'd prefer email, you can do questions at dailywithdoc.com. And if you'd like to continue to be part of our audience here on Zoom, we're changing things up in October. Make sure that you email us, zoom@dailywithdoc.com, and get your private invitation for our upcoming October events. Until next time, bye for now. What did I forget?
Pharmacist Ben tomorrow.
Pharmacist Ben tomorrow. Pharmacist Fridays. Yes. Thank you, AJ. Thank you very much. And next Monday, Pharmacist Ben Bites with AJ. Don't want to miss that one as well. Bye for now. This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father